I'm your host, Madeline Fisher, and this is Poetry High Podcast. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Welcome to Poetry High Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Happy to have you. So, introduce yourself, tell us your name, what you do as a poet, and how long you've been writing for.
So, I'm Victoria Grace, author of four poetry collections so far. I've always loved writing, but I discovered poetry in high school when I realized it was a way that I could process difficult emotions and traumatic experiences that I'd been through. So for many years, I just used poetry solely for my own healing. But a few years ago, I realized that perhaps my words were valuable and could encourage others who are hurting or who might be beginning their own healing journeys. So that's when I began my journey with self-publishing.
Gotcha. That's amazing. That's awesome that you found a way to channel tough situations through writing. Are there any projects you're currently working on that you'd like to share?
My most recent book came out in September and it's entitled Words for Weary Wanderers. It's for those who are feeling weary and weighted down by life. In the first half of the book, I explore themes of chronic illness and mental health in a raw and authentic way, sharing my own experiences with the goal of making readers feel seen and validated. And then in the second half of the book, I share poems about hope and nature's healing powers. I am currently working on a fifth book, but it's still in the early stages, so I don't have really information to share on that one just yet.
Gotcha. That book sounds awesome, though. Thank you for sharing. What are some challenges that you faced as far as being a poet and all that comes with it, as well as marketing and all that stuff?
We live in a time where there is just so much information all readily available right at our fingertips. And while that's beautiful in some ways, it can also make it really challenging to find our target audience. People are overwhelmed with content all the time, and especially as an independent author who's just doing all the marketing and everything on my own, it can just feel like I'm drowning in a sea of other authors and creatives who are more well known and already more successful. So it can be hard not to compare to others that we follow on social media or just others that we know about in the writing world. But I think the most important thing to remember that's helped me is just to stay authentic and true to myself in my writing.
Gotcha. That's a good tip to have for sure. Yeah, I definitely get that. It can be super hard, especially like Instagram. Like I feel like a couple years ago that it was maybe not as hard as it is like right now to like build a community and grow on there as well. And just having to post every day can be a lot for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
What's one important thing that you've learned?
One of the biggest things I've learned is the importance of consistency and authenticity. So just because something doesn't seem to be working right away, not to give up on your passions, not to give up on your work, because you do have something valuable to share to the world and you just need to keep putting yourself out there. Be authentic, be you. I think in a world of like artificial intelligence and people portraying themselves one way on social media, and maybe that's not what their real life actually looks like, I think there's something huge to be said for being authentic. And I think that whether people realize it or not, they're longing for that. They want to connect over things they can relate to. So I would say I've learned just don't be afraid to be myself. Will you please everyone in that? No, like that's not even possible. But in being authentic, you will slowly come to find the readers who are meant for you.
Absolutely. And it can definitely seem like maybe people aren't getting as far as they want and it's easy to give up. But I still remember when I was sitting stuck at 500 followers on Instagram, getting 2 to 3 likes max and thinking I was never going to get anything else other than that. But yeah.
I relate with that.
Yeah. And when you want to learn more about poetry, what kind of resources do you usually turn to?
One of the biggest and most helpful resources for me has been Shelby Lee, who is a poet, but also does so much more than that. She has so many resources for poets and other creatives. And some of those things are paid memberships, but she also has YouTube videos on marketing that you can watch for free. And they are just such a wealth of information. Most of what I've learned about successful marketing has come from her, and I've definitely seen growth since I've started taking her advice and putting it into practice with my own marketing. I also am always just looking to learn more and enjoy reading from a variety of poets who come from diverse backgrounds and write in their own unique ways. Modern day poetry, some classics. I just like to be well versed on the poetry world, and I think that also helps to give me inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also, yeah, I really like Shelby Lee as well. She seems like such a sweet soul, and I think it's awesome that she's been trying to help other people as much as she can. What does being a poet mean to you beyond just writing?
Being a poet is part of who I am. It's been a lifeline for me during so many difficult periods of my life where I was just not sure that I could even continue on. And I found an incredible community of poets, and I found them overall to be very supportive of one another, which is something I really love because while there can be so much competition, a lot of the poets I've met are just genuinely excited to celebrate the wins of other people and just share each other's work. I do believe that poetry gives us a unique ability to connect with people. It's often very vulnerable, but it's in that vulnerability that we can connect. And there are so many people in the world who feel so alone in their struggles. But I think poetry can help bridge the gap and show how we are more alike than we may realize and just give us support as we walk through life.
Absolutely, that was a great way to put that. What do you feel is your message that you want to put out into the world and through your writing?
I write mainly on themes including mental health, trauma healing, hope, nature, and chronic illness. And I write on those topics because I'm passionate about them, and they also allow me to pull from my own personal experiences. So, as someone who's experienced childhood trauma, various chronic illnesses, and have just struggled with my mental health all throughout my life, and also as someone who is a social worker and has worked alongside of many people who are hurting and just walked with them on that journey, those are topics that are close to my heart. And I'm also a huge outdoors person. I just love hiking, kayaking, being in the woods, anything outdoors, really. And so that's where I feel most at peace. It's a healing, safe space for me. So I also incorporate that into my work. And while my writing can be dark at times, and I value the authenticity and honesty of that, I also try to always offer hope for my readers. I want them to know they're not alone in their pain.
That's awesome. Yeah. Are there any tips, knowledge, or advice you'd like to give to our listeners before you go?
I think that mostly covers it. I think that in the in vulnerability, that's really how we can connect. And so if that's something that resonates with you, I would encourage you to check out my books or look for other poets who write on vulnerable topics.
And where can listeners find more of you and your work?
You can find me on Instagram or TikTok at Write to Reconnect, and that's WRITE, Write to Reconnect. And I also have a website, writetoreconnect.com, where you can find my books, my podcasts, anything else that you want to know about me. And you can reach out directly to me through that contact form there if you have any questions.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for being a part of Poetry High Podcast. It was great having you, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. You too.
Thanks. Bye. All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you for tuning in to Poetry Eye Podcast. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to follow and turn on notifications, and have a fantastic week.